Mr. Trump is already in a terribly contradictory position, which he is very careful never to acknowledge, and I suspect because he doesn't even see it. He doesn't want to see it, but let me do it for him. Uncertainty is the enemy of stock markets everywhere. And it's not the enemy out of some ideological matter. Uncertainty means that if you're a company, you cannot make your normal business decisions. You know, when you had an era of free trade, more or less, and by the way, tariffs have been in existence against the United States and by the United States for the last 50 years without interruption. But there was a general commitment to minimize them. The so-called GATT, a General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. This was an agreement, let's keep them to a minimum. Let's have the World Trade Organization supervise that they're kept to a minimum. But they've always been there. But here's what they were. They were kind of fixed. I think I gave you the example last time. The United States put a tariff on foreign pickup trucks. And so pickup trucks in the United States were protected by a 25% tariff, that's a lot, against the Europeans. That's why Americans, quote unquote, fell in love with the pickup truck. No love involved. It was advertising because the car companies made much more money off a pickup truck than they did off a regular car. The tariff on regular cars was, I think, 2%, and the tariff on the pickup truck was 25%. Ergo, it became necessary to associate male egos, particularly with pickup trucks. And we had a romance of the pickup truck, imagining that this had nothing to do with capitalism, which, of course, is the specialty of capitalism as a functioning system. So, everybody at least knew for 50 years there's a 25%. So all the car companies adjusted. If you come to the United States, you can make a Toyota pickup truck because you don't have the thing. You don't have the tariff. But you can't do it in Japan. You can't do it in Europe. It said you could make a plan. You can't make a plan now because you do not know what tariff will be negotiated up, down, postponed, delayed, canceled. It's impossible. Already, both Mitsubishi and Nissan told Mexico the plans they had to build multi-billion-dollar car part factories down there are off. They're not going to move into Mexico because the premise was you could then ship those parts into Texas, across the border, no tariff. Then it's profitable. With a tariff, it's not profitable. With half a tariff, if they negotiate that, well, maybe a smaller this is impossible. No corporate CEO wants to make an investment, by the way, that will take years to complete and billions of dollars to pay for, only to arrive at the end with a situation utterly different from what you have now. You can't do that. By the way, many of these plans, decisions have to be made now. They won't come online until after Mr. Trump isn't president anymore, unless he gets another term for himself. So even if you like Trump, you can't function. All right, that means you have to remember how capitalism works. Capitalism is a system in which the money we get, we then spend. And the reason we spend it is why other people get it. And the reason we get our income is because other people spend on whatever it is we help to produce. The money goes around and around to keep us all working. Breakdown happens if someone who earns an income doesn't turn around and spend it, because then whoever depended for their income on that spending doesn't get an income. All right, the working class is not a problem. It can't keep any money. The few workers who keep money save it, put it in the bank, and that lends it to the credit card working class people who spend more than they earn. So it nets out. There is no savings by the working class. But the business, the corporations, the corporate They're the ones who earn profits, and they sit around deciding whether to invest them or not. When there's uncertainty, they don't invest. And that means money that needed to go in to keep income going isn't. Capitalism means that the 97% of us who are not employers are held hostage to the investment decisions of the 3% who are. And what's going on is messing around with those 3%'s calculations, and they wait. And when they wait, we have a recession. That's what a recession is, when they wait. Mr. Trump is making them wait. He doesn't want a recession. That's not a good thing for him. That he will get blamed for that, the way presidents always do. It's actually unfair because they don't have that much power one way or the other anyway. But this is very dangerous for him, and I'm sure his advisors are telling him this. What he's going to do, who knows? Here's an irony for those who want to understand. Tariffs are going to raise prices, there's no question about that. But you know what could cancel the price increase? A real doozy of a recession. Because when recessions happen, businesses know that they're not going to be able to sell what they produced at the old price with a recession, so they dare not raise it. You could have offsetting, and so we won't have the kind of price increases otherwise we will. Who knows? No one knows. No one knows, and anyone who tells you that, Brian, don't talk to them anymore. No one knows how this is going to play out. But there again, notice the image which keeps coming to me. Mr. Trump, and maybe that's what we ought to talk about, is facing fundamental economic problems. Whatever his megalomania, he's trying to solve some problem. The people around him too, and they're throwing Hail Mary passes. They're hoping that somehow all of this will come back and come down, and we will all gasp as the player he hoped for actually gets that ball after it's bounced around other people's hands for a while. That's what we're looking at. We are all being held hostage to a system that works like that, which is what the problem in the end really is. Does the peculiarity of Mr. Trump play a role? Sure, it always does. There's some role for the individual, but there's a much larger role for the many other social forces that are involved in all of these things. And even if you were to focus on Mr. Trump's particular, you'd have to explain why it takes the form it does. You know, a megalomaniac can do things in all different realms to express or articulate that problem that we call megalomania. And that becomes more interesting. Why this one and not that one? Mr. Trump, for sure, is now in his element. Not only has he managed to be the center of attention in the United States, but he is now the center of attention literally in every country of the world, for reasons, by the way, that are good and bad. He doesn't see all the contradictions. He's not a good Marxist. No one ever trained him in that. But if you are, then you know right away that give you an example, every government in the world, good ones, bad ones, corrupt ones, wonderful ones, every one of them now has an opportunity they didn't have before last week. Whatever economic problems that country has, and every country has them, whatever blame might have been attached to the leaders of that country for the economic problems they have, those leaders can now blame on Mr. Trump. That is not good for the United States. You become a whipping boy. You become the blame object. Whether or not that's a reasonable argument, it'll be every politician's dream. We could have done this except for Mr. Trump and his tariffs. We could have done that except for Mr. Trump. We had to do the other because of Mr. Trump. Oh, this is going to become a mantra we're going to live with for years ahead. By the way, there's smart people on Wall Street who know this and who understand that is a big, fat risk Mr. Trump is taking on behalf of the United States. that may have to be paid off bitterly and dearly in the years ahead. You know, it's like taking out a huge loan for a risky project. You're going to have to pay the interest for many years. Whether that project delivers is an open question. You're taking a big risk, and you may not be around 5 or 10 years from now, but they're going to be calling in that loan, and then they'll be held to pay, to say the least. This is going precisely nowhere, and I'll explain to you why. Every country in the world is now aware that the United States government is able and willing to hit them with tariffs. Whether or not they now go up or down, even if they were to be erased tomorrow, the same president on the same country with the same economic problems may do it next week, next month, next year. That's the uncertainty I'm talking about. And therefore, every company in the world, including American companies, by the way, not just foreign, capitalists around the world, countries, here's what they're going to do, slowly but steadily. They're going to reduce their dependence on the United States, whether they buy from us or sell to us or borrow here or whatever their activity is. They're not going to want to be subject to this uncertainty. And so they're going to move. They're going to look for a market they don't have to worry it'll be hit. Well, there's one dominant option in the world if you're not going to deal with the United States, and that's China. That's where the wealth is. China can be very bravado because it's going to pick up a wealth of export opportunities, import opportunities, investment opportunities, lending opportunities. And the United States has so alienated Europe, even though it's a much secondary part of the world economy now, they're still very rich. And the Chinese are busy working their rear ends off, cutting deals with the Europeans, whose anger at the United States makes them uniquely likely to cut a deal with the Chinese, especially the Germans. So you're going to see a rearrangement of the world, but no one knows how that looks at the end. It could very well be that the United States becomes terribly isolated, really becomes an outlier in a world where the vast majority of the people, that's already true, the vast majority of the people are economically focused somewhere else. We've never had that before. Europe and America have been the core of the colonial world when that was there, and the post-colonial world, they kept on being the economic center. Now, by their own act, they're cutting themselves off. China and the BRICS together are 60% of the world's people. The United States is 4.5% of the world's people. Don't ever forget those numbers. You will make catastrophic mistakes if you do. This could end up in a situation where, and I'm talking a few years, not a lifetime, 5 years, 3 years, we could have a reaction in this country as what I've just described begins to show itself. I mean, that'll take time. Won't happen in a week or a month. But as this begins to show itself, my guess is you're going to see the business community go, oh my God, was this a mistake? And then work overtime to try to undo as much of the damage as they can. Will that happen? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you for sure that when Mr. Trump says, take your medicine, there's a little problem here, that is total BS. That's exactly as valuable as a few years ago during the pandemic when the inflation then started and the Federal Reserve, Mr. Powell, assured us it would be, and I loved his word, transitory. Yeah, it turned out to be, and he rued the day that he used that word. They won't use that ever again because of its bad association. When Mr. Trump tells you what the results of this tariff program are, don't listen. He doesn't know. I don't know either, but he doesn't know, and he's the one taking the enormous risk. If anything, the megalomania is beginning to show itself as, I'm the age that I am, How much have I got to lose? I may go out, but I'll go out with a bang, and he's working pretty hard to make sure that there will be a bang, of whatever else there is not so clear.